Hello everyone, welcome to the first edition of Future of Work series by NASSCOM Insight. Planned as a 12-part series, each session will focus on different aspects of workplace to workforce in the post-COVID-19 scenario. The topic for today's discussion is the role of HRTech in accelerating future of work. I'm Kriti Makhija, Chief Financial and Compliance Officer, Genesis BCW, a member of Advisory Board NASSCOM Community, and your host for this discussion. Joining us today as panelists are Preeti Bose, Head Leadership and Talent Development at Cyril, Amarchand, Mangaldas, an Executive Coach, Talent and Development Professional. Preeti holds 24 years of experience in culturally diverse organizations in FMCG, ITES, pharma and education, from established global to mid-sized Indian and startups. Over the years, she has led key roles in talent management, performance management, learning and leadership development, business transformation, and D&I for building organizational agility. Welcome, Preeti. The next is Ajay Venkatesh, Associate Director, KPMG India. Ajay has led pivotal roles in providing end-to-end human resource advisory solutions to organizations, including applying data-driven insights to build human resource process efficacy. His expertise lies in change management, culture transformation, high potential identification, succession planning, talent management, leadership development, and other OD interventions along with business development. Welcome, Ajay.
Thanks.
Next, we have Aniket Sudhanshu, Senior Analyst, NASSCOM Insights. Aniket is a Senior Analyst at NASSCOM, leading research focused on future of work, e-commerce, and crypto tech. He has over a decade of experience in technology research and strategy consulting. Welcome, Aniket.
Thank you, Kriti.
The way of work post-COVID-19 is very different. The pandemic, while it posed several challenges, has also opened the opportunities to reimagine and redefine our workplace and workforce. The collective call to reimagine how and where we work is strong, and all conversations point towards a hybrid work model that brings together the best of both worlds as our future. In this evolved hybrid future of work, technology is expected to reshape the workforce, work culture, and workplace significantly. In the next 45 minutes, our panelists will share insights based on their experience on how technology can be utilized to aid employees to work seamlessly, integrate new hires, create safe and hygienic workplaces, drive collaboration, productivity, and innovation. So without much ado, let's get started with our discussion. And my first question is for Preeti. Preeti, what role has HR played in recruitment and onboarding processes during the pandemic?
First of all, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Preeti. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. So my first thing is, as we all know, the pandemic has been a great catalyst for technology, and it's come to the front row of the workforce dynamics. Right? And we see that it's been the guiding force in the fabric of changing workplaces. While some organizations have done a much better job and they've been able to manage it in a more efficient manner, but that's only because they had already been investing in tech, especially the multinationals. Right? If I look at some of my previous experiences in organizations, for example, say while I was at Mondelez, I was in a global role in 2015 with my manager in the UK. My entire team was actually literally across the world, not a team member co-located in India. And it came very easy to us even back then because the entire infrastructure was there, the ecosystem was there, the mindset was there, the acceptability was there. And it was a way of working in a given that people could be working from anywhere, So organizations like those, I think, have done a far better job, including other multinationals, of course. Some organizations, on the other hand, as we know, they have literally struggled because overnight they had to move from manager wanting to have absolute direct oversight to team members and managers both struggling because there was no established ways of working if they had to work remotely. And they have worked really hard to ramp up and play catch up with not only the peers, but the rest of the times and the industry as well.
So the early adopters and the first mover advantage always existed, Preeti. Yes, you're so right in that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that focusing on HR tech, it's created a more continuous process of employee evaluation. How do you hire? How do you manage the entire life cycle of performance management, talent conversations, leadership development, and learning programs? Ensuring that engagement continues to happen and so forth. So some organizations, because they had the processes and the ecosystem built in, they did a much better job. But in the recent times, I see a lot more organizations have done or have been investing significantly in their HR tech. And HR tech, for example, has it's at least come to the forefront of everything, I would say.
Yeah, you're so very right. There were, of course, the early adopters and first movers, but there was also, we saw a rapid change in orientation and adaptation. I think this was the most agile time of adapting to a new way of working. So, huge compliments to leaders and organizations which were quick enough to adapt. And with that, my next question is to Aniket. Moving beyond recruitment and onboarding and focuses on the role of technology. So Aniket, what are the other aspects which have witnessed increased usage of HR tech? EHS, productivity, mental well-being, others? Look forward to your thoughts.
I think in continuation to what Preeti already said, right? So they were early adopters, and since the pandemic, right, we've seen a lot of companies and the role of HR tech expanding across all functions of, HR. The most notable one is in terms of, HR tech usage in employee health and safety. Companies have launched crisis communication apps, which provide guidelines and guidance to employees, keeping them updated on the risk and tips to keep themselves and their families safe. Companies like ITC Infotech, for example, have introduced apps called Fight Corona, which does the same. On the other hand, there's also significant increase in usage of cloud-based HR tech solutions. Most predominantly in terms of cloud collaboration tools, work allocation, and performance evaluation tools, right? And another area I think where HR tech is kind of disrupting the HR function is the learning and development aspect, right? We've seen increased usage of AI-powered HR tech solutions, which not only automate the sourcing and screening of best candidate, but also recommend the best career path, right? And draw up a personalized learning path for each employee. So these are the areas that we see, beyond the virtual recruitment system, where HR tech is kind of, moving into.
True that, Aniket, the entire landscape, not just, focused around recruitment, but the entire landscape has changed in post-COVID times. It's not just a workplace where we are sitting and working, but even the way we are working and engaging with each other. Thanks to technology, I really don't know what and where we would be without this intervention. So continuing the role of technology, I think it's time to rope in Ajay and understand how HR tech can be leveraged to accelerate integration of technology in organizational workforce. Ajay, would you like to elaborate on this one?
Sure, Kriti. Before I get there, I just wanted to, I was just thinking when this topic actually came by and the role of HR in accelerating future of work. So I think I'll start with that. So in terms of what is future of work for us? So do we have an answer for that? I think everybody's still grappling. There's a lot of talk happening, but none of us have a clear answer. But yet, we know one very important fact that it's not going to be the same as is. And there is going to be a drastic and dramatic shift from what we are doing today to what we are going to do tomorrow. And to put and add to what you were saying, Kriti, some time back, that and it's going to be very fast. We can already see that, and people have to move towards that. So let me explain. For example, if I were to ask you, do you think TikTok, and Preeti is here from L&D as well. So do you think TikTok is a tool that HR folks could learn from? It's something to think about. Many may start to think, but we don't have time, so I'll explain as to why I felt that TikTok could be a tool that HR folks could probably be using. For example, in L&D itself, a lot of things are changing, and this is with regards to the technology question that you asked. So if you see from a general mode of delivery, and to Preeti's element of fast movers earlier when we started our normal programs, then real-time based programs, to now creation mode. So which means that I can create my program for my business unit and actually run it. And that's where technology is now playing a big mode. So TikTok, for example, is a brilliant, easy creation mode, or InShots, which I like to use nowadays. I'm starting to learn that as well. So, or for example, I'll take another example, like you have this ONA, which is called as the Organization Network Analysis bit. I don't know if you've used that. I have used it in a different mode with a partner firm, and it's damn interesting. So what it does is, you have this, it actually reads all the emails so that people send, and it helps you to understand if collaboration, teamwork, and the way you communicate with people and how you communicate with people. So this is how the future of work is being redefined. With that in mind, I'll now get into the actual answer in terms of how it's helping us accelerate the future of work aspect, and especially in technology area. While I was thinking, I actually put down a model. So I thought I'll just share that with everyone. I just put down a model, and I call it as the MATCH, M-A-T-C-H. And what does MATCH stand for? So how do you actually link your entire technology when you're thinking through as an HR? So the M element stands for maturity of the organization. So what level are you in? Not every organization can actually go in and start deploying, high-end technology tools, and everybody's talking about it. But let's not get into that, bandwagon and start thinking about high-end technology, which we can't use. So our maturity isn't there as an organization. We are starting, and especially in India. And Preeti will, concur with me that, MNCs which have started using to Indian organizations which are just evolving. Second is audience. Who are you trying to deploy this to? Is it only internal? Is it internal, external, or is it also your customers? And that is a very important element in terms of any other workforce. For example, gig workforce is a big talk point today. So are you going to integrate them as well in your, so who's the audience? The third is T, which is technology. So what form of technology am I using? Will it ease and enhance my system? And most importantly, coming to the most important point of our topic today, what I felt was create a good experience. Is it cloud-based, SaaS, PaaS? What is it? So what technology I'm trying? And last and most important is the CH part, which is change. So managing this entire transformation, where most organizations fail miserably. As a consultant, what I have actually seen, we may be thinking about our maturity, we may get the technology right, but we don't know how to, deploy this on the ground. Are people actually, being able to understand what is required? And that's where many of them. So maybe thinking about this as a match, as I just put an acronym for the ease of everyone. If we start using this, maybe it will be helpful. If I have one more minute, I can probably take one small example of how this has actually helped. And I did a little bit of research, and I got some interesting insights. So I thought I'll just share this actual real-life organizational experience with people. So in Coca-Cola, just before the pandemic, they actually conducted a listening survey, an employee listening survey. And the listening survey had one question, which said that what's that one faltu or redundant process that we should just get rid of in the organization? And just guess what would have come out. Can you just make a wild guess, Preeti?
I'm not taking a guess, but I just hope it was not that they don't want finance. It'll make me redundant.
Was it the holy Rangoli celebration, Ajay?
No. It's something that I'm sure back of all our minds, but it's not coming out. Just think about it. It's the performance management system.
But, oh yes. Oh God, I dread it.
So they felt that this system, just is just a waste of time, and it consumes huge amount of energy and time of people. And that's where they went back and they started reevaluating it, and they realized that there's a lot of repetitive and non-important activities which are involved, and it unnecessarily comes. For example, even in our PMSs, large organizations, I'm sure you would be aware that you just have to listen to people who you don't know about. Why do I have to spend time sitting for 2 hours listening to people I don't know about? Let's just try and shorten it and then make it more sharper, crisper, and that's what people want. So things like this, that's where technology has played a very, very integral role. If you observe that listening element from people, then being able to revamp it, and like Kriti mentioned, in terms of integrating it with your initial onboarding equipment, PMS, compensation, engagement, and exit and other areas. All in all, the entire element is to ensure that we are able to provide a very good candidate or an employee experience. That's where technology should be looking at, and that's where the acceleration will also start happening.
Well, thank you, Ajay. That was really insightful. But I just hope you are trademarking the match concept because it's really easy to understand. You know, the moment you think about technology, you suddenly find that it's too above. You know, for somebody like me, you know, it just goes above, and I say, oh God, another portal to go to. But you know, when everything is aligned, and once the experience is good, and once you really have a framework on how are you going to embrace this change, I think it becomes very easy, and it becomes so much more easier to just collaborate and embrace and take it to the next level of efficiency and productivity. And I love the real life example that you shared. So thank you so much. And with that, coming back to you, Aniket, would like your thoughts on how HR tech can enhance workforce engagement, especially in a distributed work setup.
You know, as in that distributed work setup, what we have seen is that organizations have already, started rewriting this strategy workforce engagement. If you look at the core of workforce engagement, there's leadership, communication, collaboration, and trust. NASSCOM actually partnered with Aon and released a report this year, which highlighted that 67% of the organization feel that employee engagement remains the most difficult aspect of how HR delivers value. And more than a majority of the tech organizations in India are actually training their leadership teams, managers, and supervisors to lead teams in a virtual setup. So the HR tech cases, so to speak, are evolving and are already solving many of the workforce engagement challenges. We are to see witness of how the gains in communication and collaboration front with more than 1,000-fold increase in the usage of MS Teams and Zooms, which can be seamlessly integrated across diverse work models, be it on premises or distributed setup or permanently 100% remote working models. Enabling trust, I think, remains the final frontier for the success for the distributed setup. And I believe that HRTech solutions, holds the keys for success in creating or replicating this trust.
Just on that part about trust, once when you look at trust, it's very person to person. With technology, do you think, Ajay and Preeti, this is specifically to you, that with the aid of technology and the right human intervention, organizations in the new hybrid model will be able to take the trust factor forward, especially in service organizations? And I'll start with you, Ajay, and then we'll move to Preeti.
Okay, so it's a very touchy question, Kriti. So I'll take an example. For example, many organizations, and then where we are also speaking to many organizations, and with technology taking shape, and especially with this remote working, a large issue has come up. The issue is of how do we manage performance then? So the old model of performance management needs to be revamped to, from the earlier model of, I used to see him, I like the way he dressed, or, he comes and does my errands or anything that happens in the performance system, to now a more outcome-based performance management. One is that. Second is in terms of what's happening through the day with flexible working, etc., taking shape. And I'm just coming to the trust element. For example, this is where the trust element comes in. So technology is eventually going to track and map the way you are going to work. And that's going to be the reality. I mean, you can already see the way Google actually maps and tracks the way you go out and shop, let's say in a Mishtana Bandar somewhere, you go and buy sweets, and then Google asks you to rate that particular sweet shop. I mean, so you can understand that, if that's happening from an experience front on whether you like that shop or not, which is a very simple thing, actually, we don't even get into it. But if you go deeper, similarly, employees are also going to be tracked in some form or the other. And organizations would always want that, however you say. But coming to the element of trust now, I think the trust factor, Kriti, lies more with the leadership than with technology, to be very honest. It's about the way leadership communicates, the way organization culture percolates from the top in terms of transparency, the openness and authenticity with which the leaders percolate what they want as an organizational purpose and how they are going to achieve it. I think these matter more than how the technology is going to play a more important role. Technology is going to be there. It's like a machine. It's going to help or enable, or it's going to speeden up things for you. Some may feel that maybe it's actually getting into my personal space, or it's eating into a zone which I don't want someone to come into. And that's where leaders actually can step in, or an organization can step in, and you can have open communication with the employees, where they are openly stating out these facts. The issue today is that as an employee, if I were to look back, and many of us through our employee days, we will realize that we could not be as open as today's millennials are.
Yeah.
And there is where the trust quotient. So it's not so much with technology. I think it's more with the leaders and the organization's overall management style.
Yeah, you're so right. Organizations like NASSCOM and many other technology players can enable collaboration with the technology, can give us the right platforms. But trust at the end of the day is about one-to-one, and the culture that one creates, and the culture that the leaders not just talk but walk. And with that, Preeti, would love your take also on this trust factor, and how can technology help solve that barrier? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Kriti, as Ajay was talking, I was thinking about it to say, products and platforms are the easiest to manage and make available, right? And as we have seen, this pandemic has shown us that it is the humanitarian values like empathy, trust, kindness, which are in massive deficit, not only with the teens, but also in quite a few leadership organizations. And it's the same thing that Ajay spoke about as well. I'd like to build on it to say, if leaders demonstrate and role model trust, that I trust you, Kriti, right? I'm not going to monitor your keystrokes. I don't want you to fill trackers for me. I don't want you to, give me a report every evening. I don't want you to spend half an hour instead of spending time with your family to tell me what you've done through the day. As long as we can agree on what needs to be delivered, how, when, right? So that entire maturity needs to show up far more sharply, Kriti, right? And I think it's not just making tech available to people and the systems. It's more about the entire evolution of how leadership shows up, because, as a team member, whether you like it or not, you're being looked at, you're being judged, you're being assessed. And what you say as a leader, your team members are inadvertently going to follow, because if it's all right for you, people will assume it's all right for them.
Yeah, you're so right. Leadership is being a leader is one of the most watched position that you are at. You are almost in an act the entire day, and that act, if it's your own self, is no longer an act, and that's what builds trust. So Aniket, coming back to you, is your research showing that in present times, in the pandemic times, the microscopic way of working, that I need to know everything by the hour, is changing? Does your research show that leaders have become a little more liberal, managers have become a little more liberal, or have they further sharpened their microscopes?
So I think in terms of the conversations that we have had with the players in the industry, what is evolving is that, everyone now, as we move toward distributed setup, is now emphasizing more on trust, and that comes both ways. So organizations are and leaders are actually maturing to the idea of giving more trust, more ownership, and a lot more accountability or outcome based kind of roles, and actually just looking at it from a microscopic perspective. And I think that's how it's going to evolve, if we have to leverage the benefits of the distributed setup to its potential.
You're so right, Aniket. Every person needs to be smarter as to how to work in this hybrid environment, and there is no one fix for all. Each one has to define their own ways depending on the industry, the space. But technology can enable, whether you want people to be under the microscope or a far larger spectrum of things. So with that, Preeti, would you like to elaborate a little more on the HR tech in embedding diversity and inclusion in workforce, revolving around gender diversity, gig workforce, and geographical diversity? So a little more on that.
Sure, Kriti. And as we have realized that tech AI is not a good to have anymore, it's a must to have. Right? And we have seen that with the change in times, and especially in the pandemic, you've seen that hybrid work models also throughout that work contracts have been impacted deeply and massively. Not only now do you have access to a global talent pool, but you also have deeper access to different talent pools across India in the smallest of villages. Internet is available, technology platforms are available, people are far more savvy, and what Ajay spoke about TikTok, I've seen multiple examples where a small laborer in a smallest village somewhere is putting up videos, and the person has some 48,000, 2 lakhs kind of subscriber base already, right? It's amazing what internet and the reach can do. The only thing is that message should reach out to people and it should touch them somewhere for them to want to connect. And the same for the entire conversation around the gender diversity, equity, inclusion, etc. Right? I think first of all, we need to create an ecosystem so that no barriers come into play. So while tech has enabled a wider reach, I think one of the biggest barriers, Kriti, is the mindset.
Yeah.
We need to be able to accept our employees in the households that they are, the environments that they are. You don't go around judging people on where they live, how they stay. I can't expect a team member of mine to be in a soundproof room for a conversation. I know that he or she stays in a 1 BHK, 2 BHK setup, right? So that maturity, the emotional empathy, all of these need to be far sharper. And I think more than that, we also need to become aware that while you're creating equitable workforces, right, you also have to ensure that the ecosystem around that is ready to accept. Otherwise, you onboard a team member from, say, one of the different geographies. You have to ensure that the time zones match, the manager and the team member understand each other. There is enough platform, enough collaboration tools for them to work together, and so on. Right? I think it's not just the geographical impact or the gig workforce, because just if I was just to look at gig workforce, I think a lot of organizations now have more than about 20 to 25%, if not more, of gig workers. Wherever the industry and the format permits them. And of course, HRTech has been a key agent in getting the diverse workforce to common platforms and manage the entire life cycle. They have in multiple policies, they have in multiple programs, that bring people together and so on. But I think if I go back to the challenges that we need to still fix, and these are not tech challenges, these are all human challenges. Yeah, one is the entire mindset that I spoke about. The second is the fear, because a lot of people keep saying back to, when we go back to the normal times, and I want to tell them there's no going back. This is it, right? We are here. We are not going back anymore. Right? We'll have to evolve from here, accept this is what it is, evolve, adapt, right? Be agile and make the most of what is right now available to us. And if leaders keep talking about going back, I'm really worried about what the messaging is across the organization in that case. Yeah? And we already spoke about the trust factor, right? How it needs to be available. That needs to be the glue between everything else, because if there is trust and empathy and kindness and understanding and acceptability, I don't see any reason where the managers and employee can't work together to work towards business outcomes and ensure there's business continuity.
You're so very right. Technology, of course, has accelerated speed at which we can adapt change. It can give us the platform. It has opened up the world to us. But at the end of the day, it is about the conversations that we are having, our mindset, and our own ability to embrace change and not continue to do lip service on the diversity conversations that we are having. I'm a huge D&I supporter and advocate, so I'm completely with you on that one, Preeti. I wish we can, use the technology-enabled platforms and collaboration methodologies to accelerate and embrace this in its truest sense. So with that, Ajay, could you share some light on the key drivers for HRTech in any organization?
Sure. So, I've been hearing out many people, and they say that the pandemic has been the driver for HRTech. So I don't think so. I mean, HRTech was already there, and Preeti clearly mentioned that, it was already there. It was in KPMG, we have something we call as the pathfinding HR research that we are doing. And that's what, we say that as a good CHRO to a pathfinding CHRO, how it differentiates, and this is where those things differentiate in terms of the call that you take. So pandemic was never a driver for HR. HR tech was already been there. If you just go back to manufacturing setup, tech has already been there. Robotics, laser welding, so many things have been used. In the automotive industry or in manufacturing, which is one of my core sectors I work in. So I've already seen all this tech play. It's just about applying it. Applying your thought process and mindset in that direction, to what Preeti mentioned about the mindset element. So what are some of the key drivers for HR tech? This question prompted me to think too. And I actually started to write down. So I wrote down a few things. I thought I'll just share this with you. So the first element I felt was growth. So growth, why growth? There are small organizations, there are mid-sized SMEs, and then there are large organizations. And then there are conglomerates as well. So, developing markets like India, we need to understand that the growth is much higher and exponential in nature. You can see around you, right? Number of startups and the kind of exponential growth that is. So this becomes one very key element to note as a driver for your HR tech. And how fast am I growing? How much am I growing? And where am I growing to? Within my sector, outside, or multiple sector products, etc. As you can see, many services are diversifying and coming up. For example, Uber, from being a typical champion of driving, giving an aggregation for a point-to-point transit service, to now Uber Eats also coming up, and then maybe multiple other things that they will keep on adding on. So that's one. So growth. The second element was simplification. So simplification is in terms of we had this recruitment cycle in HR parlance that we always had. So ATS was brought in, which helped in simplifying the recruitment. So that's application tracking system for you, which was brought in to simplify the recruitment process. Many organizations, in fact, practically 80% of organizations in India now are using some form of ATS. With pandemic, of course, that has accelerated it. But organizations which have gone beyond that have started moving to levels beyond the typical ATS model, which is automated assessments, automated capturing of talent. For example, you have workplace in Facebook. Why don't we exploit that to identify talent and pull talent through AI-based systems? And that's happening. And whatever I'm saying is happening. So that's simplification. So how do I simplify my existing processes? Remove my redundant processes. Probably use bots, use apps, assistants, which can lead to simplification of various mundane tasks, which I probably do on a day-to-day basis. The third element is scale. So how big, how large am I growing to, which is with the growth path of it in terms of my talent pool size, workforce demographics. The fourth element is talent demographics. Again, to what Preeti was mentioning, really beautifully put in terms of now technology has allowed us to reach probably the tier 3, tier 4 cities in India, and probably identify talent and reach out and get them. So that's another area. So I can reach out to larger talent pool, lower costs, become a key driver for me in this space. The fifth element which I put was around overall redesign of the employee life cycle, which is, for example, we always had hierarchies, we have a president, we have a vice president, and typically it happens, right? In all organizations we have. But if you see today, hierarchies are not getting job done. It's a different structure. It's a job redesign, which is very important. That's why I'm saying the redesigning the entire, organization life cycle or the employee life cycle in terms of job. How is my job getting done? So it's more about teams, cross-functional cohesiveness. So redesigning all of it, the way work gets done is becoming more important, and that is bringing in that element of cross-functional collaboration, team, etc. And the last and most important thing I felt was the overall employee life cycle, which is the experience journey of how I am hiring a candidate to how I am asking, or when the person is resigning and he or she wants to move out, how am I ensuring that I am treating them, how am I managing that entire life cycle for them, and at the same time, even after they go out, am I still being connected with them? If you see a lot of large organizations have alumnus network, or they keep connecting, may not be very strong, but it's going to be more and more strong with Facebook, Insta, and all that coming in. Using technology, you can actually re-engage the talent and probably bring the talent back. So these are some of the factors which I felt are key drivers for HR Tech's overall growth path. I just try to simplify it as much as possible. And lastly, it's all about the aspirational element of a brand, be it a small firm or a large firm. How I'm being perceived in the market as an employer that people want to work with. It's not big, small today. Please note, the millennial generation is not what we used to distinguish between, oh, it's a big company, mere ko to udhar kaam karne ka hai. It's not like that today. It's now changed. It's about whether I am respected, whether I am valued, and whether I'm given the freedom. And you mentioned that point pretty nicely, the individuality, which becomes very important today. And is that respected in the organization? And this is what people are looking at. So the brand element becomes, will come out through all of these, whatever I mentioned. Eventually, you will lead up to that brand that you want to portray. So HR Tech drivers are all of these elements.
Thank you so very much. This was so insightful. If you look at it from an organizational perspective, the moment you talk growth, simplification, it means more moolah, and it sinks in with the leaders. And the moment you talk a diversified global pool, it also sinks in with better talent, innovation, and again moolah, because that will bring in returns. But when you talk about employees, they're talking about experience, flexibility, employee life cycles. And you've put it so beautifully, Ajay, that it's connected all the dots. And what came closest to my heart, as I'm the CFO of a communications firm, is the branding. It's no longer about being the largest to be able to attract talent. It is about having the right image that attracts. And millennials today are, unlike us, the classic school of I want to be with the big. They are looking for completely something very different, which is trust, respect, growth, flexibility. And I think HR Tech and great researchers and organizations like NASSCOM are going to provide that platform for both leaders as well as for, of course, the aspirants in the new workforce. The topic is so vast, but the time is ticking. To wrap up this conversation, I would love to invite some closing comments and thoughts on the 2021 outlook for HR Tech in the Indian context. And let's start with you, Aniket.
So in terms of 2021 outlook, right, I mean, there are a couple of things. One is, in terms of, as Preeti rightly mentioned right at the beginning, that earlier the HR Tech adoption was kind of accelerated or adopted by the larger organizations. Now, with the move towards the distributed models, the company has started gaining the benefits and realizing the potential. And now they're doubling down on their investments in HR Tech. That's a trend that's likely to continue for, for short to medium term. We did a survey, NASSCOM survey on the CEO Pulse survey to kind of track how the organizations and the sector is responding to the second wave crisis. And roughly around 92-93% of the organizations are kind of committed to adopting a hybrid work model beyond the pandemic. Right now, if you look at the percentage, it kind of sees a wider adoption beyond the larger organization to shorter organization, which kind of means that there is a larger trend in the background towards democratization of the HR Tech solutions. And a lot of these technology players will now offer, customized solutions for HR Tech, which are more catered towards the smaller organizations. And as such, the adoption is likely to increase. So both of these together kind of, paint a very, very promising and a bullish outlook for HR Tech from an Indian context.
So that's really interesting, Aniket. Just a follow-up question on that. So the HR Tech providers, do you still see them in the space of large organizations, or do you also see a lot of new startups mushrooming to be able to provide these HR Tech solutions, whatever be the size of organizations that we're talking about?
I think a lot of startup providers have already startups have actually started offering solutions on those lines, and they're kind of also integrating new solutions such as AI, ML learning, and kind of solutions that are more customized and tailor driven towards smaller solutions. So I think while the larger technology service providers will kind of also converge and start addressing this market, which is now growing at a rapid pace, there's also a very prominent role that startups can play and have started playing in this particular domain.
Great. I'm sure the startup community is going to be very happy hearing that, and you'll get to see a lot more coming in. And with that, Preeti, your closing thoughts on 2021 outlook for HR Tech in Indian context.
Sure, I think just building on what Aniket, Ajay have also mentioned during the course of this conversation, Kriti, is that if you can use this opportunity to literally shake down what's not working, iron out the inefficiencies, instead of having multiple different tech platforms, which I know a lot of organizations still have because they kept buying at different times, right, for something or the other solution. If you can just use this opportunity to integrate all tech platforms, have a seamless experience for the employees and the organization in terms of the entire life cycle. You don't want to be using one for performance management, one for development, etc., right? You know what happens. So I'm saying if we can just provide a seamless experience to the organization and the employees across the entire life cycle of an employee, it would make life simpler. It would just shake away the cobwebs, all the inefficiencies that we have in systems currently, right? And I again see this as a very, very positive outlook to say leaders have to take charge, right? And take hard calls on what is working, what's not working. Because like I said, we all know the times are here to stay. So how do you create an opportunity and a workforce for tomorrow that's bright and set example for everybody? I think that's what we all need to take care of.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, Preeti, from a user experience. I'm both a leader and also a user. I think the joy that all the platforms that I was working in, we were amongst the early adopters of technology, HRTech, in our life. But in the last 1 year, humongous amount of effort has been to integrate those, and also we those which are not making sense. And I love the way you keep going back to the responsibility of leaders to see this as an opportunity, responsibility of the leaders to define, reimagine, and ensure that it's embraced in a good way for growth. With that, Ajay, your closing thoughts on 2021 outlook for HRTech?
Okay, so I have a very different outlook here. So, but okay, I'll share this nevertheless. So, while and this is an interesting question, and when I was thinking, there's so many things that came to my mind. Like Preeti said, yeah, we have so many platforms. I was just looking back into our own organization, many others as well that I work with. So much of lack of synchronous elements in the current systems. People are finding it's becoming complicated than simplifying things, like I mentioned. I'll be thinking in that direction. But while I think of that in one direction, one very important element, and as I close this, I want to just share this with you, that while we discuss on multiple areas of HR tech and multiple platform systems, while we are able to reach to outer space of Earth, touching space and coming back, and many more things that are happening, what I felt and what I think, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but what the world needs and what employees need today are safety and well-being in the coming couple of years at least. Don't know till how long, honestly. We need to ensure that whatever tech we decide to use, while it leads to superior experience, the overall comfort and speed and cost reduction, etc., it should also be leading to making a better working world, a happier working world, and a more lovable working world. I may seem too idealist, but this is what I personally feel, and I want to leave as an ending comment from my side.
That's the completely perfect ideology that I love as a leader as well as an employee, because number of surveys that I've also read, and Aniket will be able to comment on that, are leading to this, that employees are asking for safety, both physical as well as psychological, and also their well-being overall. In addition to, of course, there's a long list of other things. We love asking for more all the time, but these are the top priorities in the agenda. And with that, I want to say a big thank you to Aniket, Preeti, and Ajay for sharing their insights today on this very important discussion for now and for the future. Like Preeti said, there is no going back. It's now and here onwards. If somebody thinks when life gets back to normal, well, let's wake up. This is normal, and it's really evolved from here. So I absolutely love this conversation and have several takeaways myself. And I'm sure when our listeners hear, they'll have many takeaways too. The future of work is about flexibility. It's about large, diverse talent pools. But most importantly, it is about being productive anywhere. And this is the place where technology plays a very significant role. How do we continue to remain productive? Responsible leaders today must move beyond physical locations to shape the future of work by leveraging technology to give people resources, tailored to their needs. This can sure be daunting, but I believe it will be worthwhile goal for organizations to pursue, because they will see bottom line benefits from having a workplace that is healthy and productive and psychologically and physically safe. Business growth in uncertain world depends on resilient and productive workforces. So leaders, start building yours today. Reimagine hybrid working to boost business and make it possible with technology so that the workforce thrives, whether they are on-site or off-site. Once again, thank you very much, Ajay, Preeti, and Aniket, for all your insights. And with this, we conclude today's session, and we look forward to you all joining us for the second edition of Future to Work series by NASSCOM Insights. Thank you from me and from all of us and from the NASSCOM Insights team. Good day.
Thanks, Kriti. Thanks, NASSCOM.
Thanks,
Aniket. Thanks, Kriti.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Stay safe.